Timothy, those aren't your car walls. Where are you today?
Look at this.
Hello, Budry. Hello, Mr. Budry. You've been on the
Where's my
plane.
name? Yeah, I had some lawyering stuff to do. I am in British Columbia in Tsawwassen and near Delta. Flew back. It's been a tiring couple weeks. Having gone back to Ottawa for some medical stuff, and I'm back here. And I thought, you know what? I have business to do, this podcast, and I am going to get a hotel room.
Yeah.
It's it's very stressful when I don't know if I'm because Mondays are always my big days. If which is when we record, if I just don't know if there's going to be a signal and am I going to have to rush to a Starbucks parking lot because as you know that has happened. And so I just thought I am going to sleep inside and get shit done.
In a real bed.
In a real But you know what? It doesn't matter because I can have, as I do here, and there's like a little suite thing, as in a hotel suite, but it is sweet too. It doesn't matter where on the bed I sleep. I mean, I have slept in your king size bed just so that people understand, not with you, but with all of your animals and Buddy. And it doesn't matter how big the bed is. This one is like a heat-seeking missile. And whenever clean up my hotel room. I'm sure they wonder what happened because I have only folded over one little corner and the rest of the bed is perfect because he just is used to
Snuggles.
sleeping.
He loves his mama.
Well, I mean, the vehicle doesn't give him a lot of space, right? So he's just used to sleeping right here. So
Yep.
it's a lovely bed, but I am more excited about the stable Wi-Fi.
I bet.
So,
Who do we have on
yeah.
today? We're chatting with
Um,
Margaret today, right?
Yeah, when I started long before you and I had met, for people that don't know, Amy and I officially met when my dad was diagnosed. And if I had to do it all over again, when I ran my own marketing company with a lot of other people involved, is our next guest, I think, is going to teach us how important it is to focus on building your team before your specialty can be celebrated and you can open a company and make a lot of money, hopefully. And I wish that I had done that better in the beginning, is had a team that really communicated amongst themselves. And we're talking about money today and how stressful it can freaking be.
I feel like, as you know, I do business coaching, specifically in my industry, and I feel like I don't know that I would love if someone told me this when I was new, but being with the experience I have, I feel like it should be like this mandatory thing that people have a certain amount of money before they start a business to invest properly in lawyers and accountants, because honestly, the amount of redoing and turmoil that has caused me in my life, you
Right?
just couldn't see it coming. You just wouldn't know. And so I always, would say have a couple of $1,000s available in just a pot of money to use on professionals, because if you have to go backwards, it's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you time, aggravation, annoyance,
Stress. Yeah.
stress.
I'll tell you a funny story because you can tell everybody, because if you're not in business, people don't know what an SME is. So you tell me what an SME is.
I don't even know what an SME is.
Small to medium size enterprise.
Okay, sure.
And I
Now you just made me look stupid.
no, but this is like how, and I'm actually glad that you didn't know, because somebody in a position of influence had written me an email about an SME, and when I met them in person, I called it a SME. As in, like I thought it was a word. And they're like, yeah, no, no, it's not a SME. It's an
Feel like
SME.
I feel
Yeah,
like also like in this industry though, we should have like a legend, a glossary. Same way as I do it with the community when I speak about elder care. It's like, here's the terms that you need to know,
yeah,
because professionals tend to talk in acronyms like SME, right? Is he from the
yeah.
Smoggies? Do you remember the Smoggies? A cartoon when I was growing
No.
up in the 80s. I don't think it was Smee there, but that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah,
Smee.
I
It
was a
was,
teenager in the 80s, Amy. Thanks for that.
yeah, well, there's still cartoons on.
I
You
was
could still
watching
see
I
them.
was watching much music had just been invented, I think. But yeah, that's
Smee's from one of the
happened for me.
cartoons. It's not the Smoggies. Anyway, that's what it reminded me of. Let's
With
digress.
Margaret today, who you yeah, no, yes, we're going to digress because that is the language too that, and it's making me think a little deeper about you need to know the language of the person that is coming to you with a business idea. And you and I sometimes have different languages because I didn't set like I had to get a printer. I had to learn how to do an invoice. I had to learn about my HST number, and these are things that probably came to you much easier than they did to me. And there's sometimes, I mean, there's, a big age difference between the two of us, and the accountants, um, the good ones, would know that we come at it from a very different place. I wasn't as educated as you were going into business about, I mean, I took journalism. I could tell you in my language that, okay, everybody, we're going to put the SOT into the VO and then we're going to come out of the clip and then we're going to go to the bumper, but then there's going to be a stinger because that was
Do
my
you want me,
language.
do you want me to flush my language, talking about ADLs and IADLs and two-person transfers?
No, because once you use your language and you were telling me about, people who need to wear Depends and stuff, there's certain things I don't need to know, Ames.
Yeah, well, I got all that knowledge for you when you get there.
Yeah.
You just asked me. Oh God. All
Thanks.
right. Let's digress. People are thinking we're crazy at this point, I'm sure. Let's bring Margaret in. We'll have a chat.
Too late, they already did.
Okay. See you in a minute.
Okay. So, Ames, in full disclosure, Margaret de Marchant is my accountant because I need a lot of help in these areas. I will remind you, I went to summer school for grade 10 math. And I thought, who better to talk in these economically challenging times about, finances, but also entrepreneurship, because when you're self-employed, there's an extra layer of, what's going to happen in the world. So Margaret, welcome, and it's good to see you in person because I know I send you a lot of emails.
It's the only way she gets to see you in person is by bringing you on the
I
podcast.
know, I know.
Well,
Yeah,
she's only in town for short periods of time, so sometimes our schedules don't
Yeah,
click at the right time.
I
we
get
don't click
that.
at the right time. We did attempt lunch this summer and life got busy for everybody, so we
It
did
did.
we did attempt.
Well, we're happy to have you on, Margaret. I am also an entrepreneur, an employer, a business owner, and all of the accounting stuff and bookkeeping stuff can be extremely stressful. I have my own team, and most of the answers I'm like, just ask the accounting team. So I know a lot of people try to do their own books. I've been against doing my own books for years because it's just really, really easy to like put a wrong number somewhere or not account for something. And Kimothy had shared that she had grew and then ran into stress related to the accident that you had to clean up and saved her money by hiring you. So is that common? Do you get people that are like, hey, I really messed up my crap, fix it?
Well, I
Because
think a
that's what
lot
I
of,
do. That's what I do to my accountant.
Clean up, clean up on aisle five, clean
Yes.
up on aisle five.
well,
Yeah.
we do a lot of cleanup. We do, I call it 9/11 bookkeeping, which is, where CRA is after so after you and your books aren't necessarily in the best order. And in fact, a lot of people seem to think bookkeeping is extremely easy. I'll do it myself. Well, my position on that is if you're going to do it yourself, you can find another accountant because it's going to double the cost just to undo what you've done as opposed to doing it right the first time with the group of people that are going to help you. Because in the end, it's going to save you money. You're going to sleep at night, and it's just easier to have everything in order. The other thing that's important to remember as an entrepreneur, you always want to know what your financial position is. And if you don't have a correct set of financial statements or books, you can't really make decisions about the growth of your business, what's going on. You can't see what is profitable, what is not profitable, and what's working and what's not. And, in times of economic challenges as we're currently facing, it's also good to have a set of books that you can see where you may be able to cut expenses, you know, and look at things in ratio. Are your employment costs in a line with your income? Are your rental costs in line with your income? That kind of thing. And it's important to stay on top of your numbers and to make sure that you have correct information because there's reporting to CRA, which is obviously if you have the correct numbers and everything is good, it's a no-brainer. Your bookkeeper or your accountant is providing that information to CRA, and you're not going to get behind because penalties and interest can be extremely costly, and it's discouraging to always have to have that elephant in the room, which is CRA.
I have to tell you, as someone who has put most of my first of my business into one accounting bookkeeping firm, and then with my only rule, Margaret, being don't piss off the CRA. That's my only rule. Everything else I can deal with, basically, but I don't want the CRA coming after me because I know that that can be a headache. And I ended up in a situation to which that accountant pissed off the CRA. And then I had to move all of my books, all of my stuff, because you lose trust, all
Of
over to somebody
course.
else and not start again, but they had to unravel
Yeah.
a mess. And do you see that? Do people come to you from
Oh,
like
for sure.
other bookkeepers and accountants being like, WTF?
Yeah, I see it more often than I would
Ugh,
prefer.
yeah.
And the other thing I do see is that a lot of times what I find interesting is happening is that bookkeepers and accountants are ghosting their clients. They don't call them back. They don't get back in touch with them. They're not talking to CRA. They've said they've done something when in fact they have not done that. So it's hard for a client to trust that. And obviously they're going to move on to somewhere else based on probably recommendations of clients or friends or family, because word of mouth is still the best way of advertising.
Yeah, and that's how I found you through our friend Janet Gray, who's coming up in another episode in the near future. She's a resident expert here on helping people. But I looked up some stats. Amy, you're going to be shocked to know I do research for this
I
show.
love you and your stats. You always have stats.
Now,
That's good.
so in Canada, roughly 30% of new businesses fail within 2 years, and about half do not survive after 5.
So what you're telling me is I'm nailing it.
You're totally nailing it. You're the unicorn.
11 years plus.
And this isn't going to come as a surprise to Margaret, obviously, but common reasons for failure include, these are not my words, poor cash flow, a lack of market need, and an inability to manage time and administrative tasks. And then it goes on to say within 10 years, so Tiger Lily Marketing had passed its 10th year, which was just by luck, I think. Within 10 years, about 2/3 of businesses will fail. And it specifically
Wow.
talks about administration, which I'm assuming is also the books. Margaret, that has to come with inherent stress. It's an uphill battle according to these stats anyway, but then, people like me who wanted to start a marketing company because I know a thing or two about communicating. I know nothing about keeping books. Like nothing. Again, went to summer school for math. So the mental health piece, like, are people coming to you also not just wanting to talk about numbers, but needing a little bit of coaching and coming back from the edge because it's stressful? Like mental health must be impacted.
Well, I've actually had clients that have been admitted to local hospitals in the psychiatric wing because they've had
Oh,
to deal with CRA, because they just
oh,
are relentless in coming after you, and then just horror stories about mental health, and the other thing is that I find that clients that have not filed or have fallen behind is that after a while they just stop communicating with CRA, and then the next thing you know, you're not 1 year behind or 2 years behind, you're 10 or 15 years behind.
You owe them your soul.
Well,
Uh,
exactly, and so there are mental health issues related with that. And so when I'm approached by a new client, I also say, because I have an MBA as well as being an accountant, is that, going back to your point, Timothy, is that your expertise is in marketing and communications. Your
mhm,
expertise is not in accounting, bookkeeping, and the administrative burden related to all that.
no.
So people get overwhelmed. They think that a lot of entrepreneurs have a passion, which is wonderful, and that's what keeps our economy going and makes and is perfect for innovation and growing the economy and things like that. But the administrative burden of running your own business is overwhelming, and a lot of people think they can do it themselves. My recommendation is, even if you're thinking of starting a little side hustle or something, talk to an accountant or talk to a bookkeeper so that you know how to do things properly and to do things in a transparent way, so that you're not hiding money under the mattress kind of thing, but you're doing things and reporting everything. And that way you're getting expert advice, you're getting the expertise, and you're not going to run into that administrative burden by hiring a bookkeeper. I'd say if you're an entrepreneur with a little side hustle, there's nothing wrong with talking to a bookkeeper or an accountant about how to do it. And
Mhm.
obviously, being a sole proprietor, that means that that income is reported on your personal tax return. It's it's when people incorporate themselves. They go online and for $200 or $250, they incorporate themselves. But what they don't realize is that by incorporating yourself is that you're going to run into a problem, because there's the incorporation process. That's where your tax saving strategy comes into place. That's how you set up your share structure. That's how you income split. And that's how you do all of those important things. My normal recommendation for somebody that's been a sole proprietor and wants to incorporate is to at least have an income point of about 100, 125 to make it worthwhile. Otherwise, below that, it's not really worthwhile. You might as well be doing a sole proprietorship, but the administrative burden is, by moving that off to a bookkeeper. Yes, you're paying for services, but you're paying for somebody else to do something while you focus on your core competency, your market niche, or whatever it is, in order to grow your business. As where having that administrative burden removed from you allows you to expand and grow your business accordingly.
In my business coaching, the number one suggestion I tell businesses, because I often coach in the elder care spectrum, which is a very new industry. And so everybody coming in is like, they're often coming from a caring side, but don't have a business background. And so I always tell them the best money that I forgot to spend when I started was getting a good accountant and a good lawyer, because a lot of people in startup and entrepreneurship with these like stats, Kim, that you shared, is that they look at it the same way I looked at it. I just learned the hard way, which a lot of us have, where it's, you know, I can do this stuff, I can deal with this stuff until I get bigger, until there's more money coming in. And I understand that mentality, except for the fact that even for me, 11 years into my business, I have this one old contract that's super not even legal anymore that I can't get replaced because I started with a contract I drew up myself, which I quickly learned was not great, and I fixed it. But the same with the accounting. You do it for so long, and I have corporations now. So it's like it is a lot to take on. And so I find that there's this, teeter-totter of I'm going to start a business because I have a passion for it. I'm going to do that, but I'm not going to do the business activities of the business starting. And that's where I find the mentality is usually with startups. And I think, generally when I coach, I say you have to think of both. You have to think of the fact that if you want to start a business that earns money, that comes with responsibilities of all of this extra stuff that you don't have a background in, most likely. And the best way to make sure that everything is working proper so you don't have to go back and repeat yourself, which I have done, and it is painful, is to start as clean as you can get it.
Well, exactly. But going to your point, that's why a lot of businesses fail. Is because as much as you have a great idea and you have an incredible amount of passion, if you don't look after the administrative or business side of things, you're going to fail. And then the other thing is you're going to end up in debt because you're going to owe HST perhaps or payroll or taxes on the personal side or the corporate side. So
Yeah.
it's best to talk to somebody, set yourself up correctly, and stay on top of your numbers and manage your cash flow and manage your expansion and make sure that you can manage your clientele on the other side as well, because don't overpromise what you can't deliver because you're going to
Right.
set yourself up for failure as well. Well, she was talking about the mental health of female entrepreneurs, which is very different than male entrepreneurs. And, you know, I think I try to coach female entrepreneurs about how to start businesses and things like that. But as a woman, there's a lot of pulls that you experience. You have perhaps children, you have a partner, you might have older parents, and so you're trying to run a business, but you're sandwiched between all the other demands that are required, and it's how to create the mental space in order to one, look after yourself and two, be successful. But, you know, I think we all experience it. I mean, being sandwiched between multiple generations with special cares, special needs, wants and desires on top of trying to run a business, clients, you know. So I think it's more difficult for female entrepreneurs than it is for male entrepreneurs. And I believe that female entrepreneurs fail um, at a higher rate than male entrepreneurs do.
Well, to your point, Kim, we were just talking about like the balancing act of women, right? And understanding that like we think the stats might be skewed towards women failing businesses because we're not balancing just a business. We're balancing the fact that we've got all this other stuff and all of the mental load of all that other stuff. And then at the end of the day, we still have to produce as business owners and run teams and all this stuff. And I mean, I faced it myself where it's super difficult. I mean, even now, there's times when it's like, I gotta go and do this. And my family is, watching a movie or doing something. And it's like, well, I have run out of time and this is due and I have to go and do it. And you have to like pull yourself away from those contacts or, Mike, my husband has started doing cooking dinner and stuff like that because there's times that I'll keep working. There's other times I don't. Like that's the joy of being a business owner. There's flex in your schedule. But to your point, it's very difficult, especially with kids, to pull yourself and run the business without the extra mental clutter. When I was a new mom, I only ended up taking off 3 weeks. Mike took off all the pat leave because he was working for someone, so he got paid to be off. So that was, financially stable for us. But I had to go back in 3 weeks because my only employee at that time, her mom died. And so we had clients in flow that someone had to take care of, and it was me, and it was painful and awful. But you're running a business as a business owner, you have to jump in, which is like a really difficult thing from time to time.
And that's what women do.
All the time. Just jump right in.
That's what we do. I don't know where you lost me because there was a power failure in the hotel that I am in
You
because I had to come off the road to do some lawyer business for the other issue.
well,
But
you were saying that when you
yes,
incorporated.
but I'm glad you guys were talking about this because this is the exact place I was going with it, is that I just trusted other people to refer or to give me information. And quite honestly, in the beginning, I was so concerned about things like, I need to write a website, I need to, do all the communication stuff that I do, that I didn't, you know, and I involved all women. And quite honestly, I should have done some more research because some of them didn't have what I needed. It wasn't that they were bad. It was that, like any good relationship, you need to have the right fit and what is needed. And I didn't know, and this is where I was going with this, is I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know what I needed. And I should have sought out immediately somebody who could mentor me in how to build a business.
Yeah, I find it tricky, like I said, with the elder care businesses, because that's where my passion is, and that's where I can I mean, I do business coaching as a general, but I can do a more in-depth job with the elder care businesses, which are all coming online, which is super exciting. But I just find that, again, you don't know what you don't know, and a lot of the businesses that come online that I see are coming from like your point of view, what my point of view was as well. At that point, I have a psychology and a business background and my and on my side, so I was attuned to the business part of it, but not to the extent that I've had to learn in the last like 12 years, right? It's the
Yeah.
amount of uphill battle by not properly putting in like a lawyer and an accountant, right? Like people look at these two roles as, oh, it's just expense for expense and I can do it on my own. And everybody's like, even like people are doing like online wills and powers of attorney and stuff. It's like, no, no, just get someone that knows what they're doing because it'll save you so much time. It'll save you so much money and like mental health issues around it because if your books, I mean, I they do go hand in hand to me. If your books and your contracts are like crap, right? Like it's just you're not operating a business. You're just digging out of a hole at that point.
Well, when I met Margaret, there's also some shame, right?
Hmm.
'Cause, like, it was a long meeting. You both know I have a head injury, so I don't remember everything the way that I would like to. And there's shame, and as women, we're already prone to feeling like failures. And
Mm.
then when, you realize that, okay, Margaret is now going to be my person, and she's asking questions that about my own company that I don't know the answers to. And as women, we want to, like, and Margaret, I have to tell you in this interview, I'm relieved to find out I'm not your only client. Like, so do you find yourself also doing a little bit of therapy when you're working with people about numbers?
A lot of therapy. I would say that when clients come to me, they usually, it is kind of like being a psychologist as well, because, people share, where money is involved, it's our deepest, darkest secrets, I'm going to say. It's
Yeah.
what it's what we share with only our close and intimate friends, or not even them, but when people are behind on their taxes or behind or they've gotten themselves into a situation with CRA, there is shame. But it's we're not judging you. We're just here to help. And I think that people bring their baggage when they meet with you and when they tell you things, one thing leads to the next, and I call it the accountant's couch, because they share their
I love
deepest,
that.
darkest secrets with you. And it's like, next thing you know, you're hearing about their sexual abuse from their childhood or,
That
any
wasn't
other
me.
type. Sorry?
It
That
wasn't
wasn't
her, she
me.
said.
No, but I'm just saying that
Record.
they share how they got there. They share their journey with you. And that's a very intimate piece of what they're sharing. And you have to be respectful of that, and you have to be understanding, and you have to be kind, and you have to be patient. Because initially, for example, a client will contact you, they're 10 years behind. But next thing you know, you don't hear from them again. And it's because in their head, they're doing whatever they need to do in order to bring you the box of records or, share with you the information so that you can update them,
Mhm.
to a point where, a lot of people fall behind. And then as they get older, because they're behind, they don't get their CPP benefits or OAS benefits, you know? And so it's a critical piece for, especially as our population is aging, et cetera. But I think it's just difficult as, I think it's a lot of people have great ideas and they start with all of that, but then the business side falls apart and then they come to you and yeah, there's like, oh, I should have done that previously or I should have looked after it in a different way, you know. But hindsight is 2020, right? And I think we have to be kind to ourselves, especially as women, because we're managing so much more. We're
Mhm.
managing our parents as they age. We're managing our adult kids or our teenagers or whatever. And some of them may have challenges of their own, and partners as well, So I think it's just because in society, women are the caregivers, and that role, I think has changed, but not a whole lot. It's still the women that are looked upon, to take care of the family members or the kids or the parents, you know. And so when a client comes to me, yeah, they share them a lot of detail. But
What I
what it's like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I share with no one. I may share a story, but there's no names or there's no information attached to that. But it's kind of when I share, it's about sharing somebody else's experience that's relevant in the moment to the current client so that they understand that they're not alone, they're not isolated. And this is not the first time, nor will it be the last time that I see this situation.
what I find interesting about the folks that are coming into elder care as a business, they are often the ones that struggle the most are the caregivers that have done this for X, Y, and Z, therefore they make a business, which is fine. There's no right or wrong or anything like that. But I find those people that start the business because of that are the ones that have the biggest issue because they don't necessarily have a background or thought process around business. They have a thought process around healing and helping,
Hmm.
which is phenomenal.
Absolutely.
But a lot of those people have like a negative money mindset, right? Like a lot of those people coming into elder care have a large issue with even charging enough for their services. And I've said more times than not, if you don't charge enough for your services, if you're not successful, if you don't make money, then your services will not be there to help anyone. And so they have this like hurdle to get over, not like they have the accounting and the legal and all that stuff, and then they have this money mindset of like, I just want to help, but they also just want to have a business. And it's like you have to do them together and you have to make money because if you don't make money, nothing else works, which means you can't put your service out there. And so I found that as an issue with a lot of people that I've been coaching, and it's very interesting because it's sometimes I come off as I don't know. I think sometimes they don't understand where I'm coming from, but like unless you have your house in order, you can't have a house to run.
Well, that's it exactly. But I think as female entrepreneurs specifically, we undervalue our services,
Oh, very
and
much.
we find it hard to charge the fair market value for our services.
You know what I find with that as well is that we're comparing ourselves, and then because the people that I've spoken to, I'm not necessarily in the same ball game because I have a different mentality, as you can tell, but the people that I've spoke to, they undervalue the service. And then when I say, hey, this is what the market can bear, or hey, whatever, or hey, this person's in your competitor and this is what they're charging, they've got something negative to say about that person because it's as if making money makes them evil. And I think that's in society. It's like generally the people that make money, people are like, oh, what did you do to get there? It's like, no, you can legitimately make money and help people or run a business properly. It's been really interesting.
Well, I think maybe with elder care, people think it should be like a nonprofit.
Should be free. Everything should be free because that's our healthcare system.
But
That's a whole
unfortunately,
other hurdle.
but our healthcare system only delivers to a certain point. There are a
Yeah.
lot of people out there that are supporting their older parents,
Yeah.
and that takes away from their ability to retire or do other things because they're financially responsible for that as well. So need to charge you need to have a discussion with a business coach, yourself, your accountant, and look at what your fair market rates are and charge accordingly. And don't undervalue yourself because then you're going to wonder, how am I going to pay my staff? I'm on my line of credit again. There's interest. I'm not going to make my payroll payment or my HST payments. So you need to really look at what services you're charging and what is a reasonable rate to charge. And there's nothing wrong with being profitable because and the other point is because you're an entrepreneur, you're running a business, is that your retirement plan is going to be what you gain over those years, whether it's in RSPs or you decide to, invest in your company or, however you set that up. But you have to plan for your retirement as well. And I always remind my clients, even though they're 20 or 30 years old, is that, you know, that's going to come at some point in time if you're lucky, that you have the moment to retire. And I think the other important thing is along your journey is to keep in mind is that at the end, what does my retirement plan look like? But that's got to be something that you think 5 or 10 years in advance. Can I sell my client list? Can I sell my business? Can I take advantage of lifetime capital gains exemption? But that's again a conversation to have with your accountant as well. How do I plan for my retirement, along with your financial advisor and what other members of your team you want to pull from as well.
Yeah.
So we're of course going to send everybody to you. But what should people look for in an accountant if they're in the beginning stages? And what you said about planning for retirement, I was 53 when the accident happened. I also thought I've got a decade to, bring
Exactly.
up and get the client list organized and then transfer some of the stuff to other people so that I could travel. And life changes sometimes pretty darn quickly. So the safety net is important. And I don't necessarily just mean the Canadian safety net, because in some cases, when you're self-employed, it's not there, in the same way that someone who had a job who then goes on long-term, short-term disability would work. So what should people be asking and interviewing an accountant, if they want to be, if they're smart enough to start the company with an accountant?
Well, they should start it with an accountant and a lawyer. I mean, the
Yep.
accountant can sometimes do the incorporation and works with lawyers or paralegals as well. So it's good to sit down and discuss with an accountant what your plans are. Now, you have to keep in mind an accountant's going to have a lot of resources if they've been up and running for quite a period of time. One thing I do want to point out is that is a shortage of tax accountants. The CPA enrollment is down by 40% across Canada. So therefore, a lot of the new graduates are not choosing to do tax because it's it's onerous dealing with CRA, et cetera, et cetera. The young kids are choosing to do the sexier stuff, and who can blame them? But what you're going to look for in an accountant is one that is certified, has their CPA, um, or they have to be a certified public accountant in order to have that ability to advise you properly. The other thing is make sure your CPA is working with a team, because something happens to them, who are you to go with? Who do you go to? So you want to make sure, especially if you're young and you're dealing with an older CPA, what is your succession plan? Okay, that's important. The other thing too is that when you sit down with the CPA is there has to be a fit. Your personality has to work with their personality. If there's not a fit, it's only going to cause friction in the relationship further down the road. So you have to make sure that you work well together. And you have to make sure that they're accessible, that they answer your emails, but appreciate we get multiple emails a day. So we might not get back to you that day, but in the next 2 or 3 days. That's a good measure as to whether they communicate effectively. The other thing that you want is somebody that's going to work with you completely. They're going to look at your personal situation. They're going to look at whether you have kids. Do you have a partner? They're going to look at what's your financial situation? What are you doing? And going back to Timothy's point, life changes. So the people that I met 20 years ago when I started doing tax, it obviously life is a journey. So as your situation changes, we change the plan. We change what they're doing, how they're doing it. So the conversation with your accountant has to be a continuous conversation. It cannot be a once a year visit and all they do is your books and submit your tax return. That's not the relationship you want with your accountant. You want an ongoing discussion so that they can adjust the plan and you can work with them as to if something happens. How do I adjust this? What do I need? Do I need to have critical care? Do I need to, if, like a female entrepreneur planning to have a baby, yeah, you can opt into EI so that you can actually do that a year in advance before you start trying to conceive, so that at least you have some income when you're off. So those are the type of things that you're looking for. But you also need a good bookkeeper because accountants don't really do bookkeeping per se. We have bookkeepers that we work with. For example, I have three corporations. One is my professional corporation as a CPA. The other one is a bookkeeping company and a related holding company. But the bookkeeping company, I have professional bookkeepers working for me. So a lot of entrepreneurs will start the conversation with a bookkeeper, for example. When you start the conversation with a bookkeeper, you want to know that they're certified, that they have at least completed the program at Algonquin College or some related college and they have certification. A lot of people will hang out a shingle just as they will for a tax planner. You don't need to be a CPA to do tax, corporate tax, or individual tax. Okay, anybody can hang out their shingle and do that. Same holds true for a bookkeeper. So when you're looking for a bookkeeper, if your accountant's not working with a bookkeeper and they usually can recommend somebody, but for a bookkeeper, you want to make somebody that has some experience, at least 5 to 10 years of bookkeeping, somebody that's just not newly minted, because and they want to make sure that they have that college degree or even a university degree. There are some CPAs that all they do is bookkeeping because they don't want to deal with the rest of it, you know. And so you want to make sure that they're educated, certified, they have knowledge, and they have experience. And a referral by word of mouth or somebody else in the industry that has a related business or something similar to you is always a good start.
I I find it really handy when I came on with my new accountant, which has been years now. I also, as a business owner, made sure that he understood my business, right? It's not just numbers, right, Margaret? It's like
Absolutely.
you have to understand because I'm a unicorn. We're unique, right? And what we do is very unique. And so they wouldn't have had experience with somebody like me before. And so there's been a lot of conversation between the bookkeeping team, the accountant, and myself about like why we're doing this and can we do that and all this stuff, right? Like, do we open a whole company here? What do we do with it there? So that's why I have so many corporations. And so it's just been really interesting. But I think that like when you're interviewing, when you're talking, like it's really important that you take time to say, this is my vision. This is how how the process works. This is how we serve people and show them what's in the sphere of what you can do. Because there's been many kind of aha moments with both of my accounting bookkeeping teams that, oh, okay, now I see why you're doing this way, or oh, we could write that off this way because you're doing it for this reason or whatever. And so it's really important, I think, to like also like have them interview you sort of, right? Like it's like,
Absolutely. So that because there are different types of businesses. A lawyer's one type of business, that's a professional corporation. And then there be maybe somebody that's doing renovations, but at the same time they have rental properties. So for them, yeah, we'll have an operating company, but we'll have a related holding company,
yeah.
and then that's holding company is going to become important as they go to retire. That's where all their holdings are going to be.
We're
And
complex human beings.
well, and I always say that one size does not fit all, right? So your story is unique and is your story, but it's different from everyone else's. And I think that's the service that we offer. We sit down with our clients and we listen to what they have to say and we plan with them and we move with them as things change. Goals change, they have children, their children are now clients of ours as well, and their children are doing entrepreneurial things or different things because each generation does a little bit of a little different spin on things, and so how a 20-year-old is doing something is not I have clients that are still consulting in the federal government and they're in their late 70s and they're still making quite a bit of coin. So it's a different journey for everyone, and different people want to off ramp at different times. But the other thing I think we have to bear in mind is people are living longer. So the journey is longer now. People are working into their 70s and, late 70s at least at this point, and they've shown that it helps with cognitive decline and things like that. So I think that people are it changes. The journey is different. People may work for the federal government for 30 years and then they incorporate and run their own gig off, consulting. We have a number of clients like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that under the things I would have liked to have done differently, in the beginning stages, because again, single parenting and I was caring for two aging parents. Um, I felt that I should be the cog in the middle and that I would have service providers. It has been so invaluable to me to have those service providers know each other and be able to be CC'd on things and
Mm-hmm.
communicate I'm CC'd on it, as you know, because you're one of them, but I don't want to necessarily know about all of the machinery. It's just, here's our recommendation. And once that trust is there, it's like, okay, so we're doing that. What the heck do I know about tax planning?
Mhm.
So, I like the idea that when you build a team, you are often referred to a team member because they've worked with them before, instead of having to be the person in the middle that is always stick handling the information flow.
Oh, that's time consuming.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
an expert in information flow. Well, I actually information flow, not the math associated with the information flow, because when I was incorporated, I was simply told it was a way to protect my family from liability issues. Period. That's all I knew. That's all anybody told me. And next thing I know, my name is incorporated, and I didn't have a team. And so I think in the very, very beginning, if you're going to open a business, that's the team, not necessarily the people that are going to deliver the food or design the product or do the communicating, but who is the team behind you that's holding you up?
I think the other important thing is with as an accountant is what can I bring to you that is beyond what I have? I mean, I have connections at BDC, at RBC, for corporate financing, people that can help do the incorporation, people that can do the wills, so it's like working, with Janet, we bring a whole team together, and so it works well because then we don't have to burden you with all the information. We're able to work in the background and keep you informed as, we look after your interests and move forward in what needs to be done.
Yep.
Get our shit done without having to like have things pass through everything.
Well, that's just it. Your time should be spent on your core competencies, which make you money, not
Yeah.
on all the other shit that
You're
is
right
out here.
there. We
Well,
swear here.
Okay. All
well,
the
Mark,
others, so I think it's important for people to realize that they're not going to be able to do everything.
yeah.
And that you focus on what it is that's going to make you money. And yeah, you're going to have to pay subject matter experts to do those pieces that you can't do.
Yep.
And it's well worth it.
It
And
is.
it's a good investment.
It is.
It's a
If
very
I
good
could do
investment.
things over, that's where it would be.
Yep.
Because the amount of duplicating and like redoing and moving around is just a night.
Absolutely. So when people go online to incorporate themselves, I just say to them, we're going to have to redo that because you're all sitting in the same class of shares. You want a dividend, blah, blah, blah. These are
Yeah.
things that you don't know. So those are conversations that you should have with the team that you're forming to help you. Have the conversation first. You'll save yourself literally thousands of dollars.
And so much time, just like
Absolutely.
and heartache at the end
Well,
of the
I think
day.
and just when we talk about mental health, we're talking about anxiety, we're talking about stress, we're talking about things, and it's just easier to feel in control as opposed to having a tsunami of anxiety about trying to run your own business. Meanwhile, you're doing 14 other roles, So I think that by having the conversation with professionals up front and knowing their fees and all of that, you know, allows you to run your business so that you're not worried about that thing and it's not keeping you up at night, right?
Well, Margaret, this has been a
Wait,
super
how do people
helpful.
find you? Margaret, they
Yes.
need you. How do they find you?
How do they find you?
They find me I have a website called DeMerchant and Associates Accounting Solutions. So it's demerchantcpa.ca and you'll find us there. For bookkeeping service, we're at Integrated Financial Solutions. Again, the same website. We're located in Orleans, but we have clients literally across the world. We have non-residents that live in Mexico, different parts of Europe, etc. So we have different types of clients. We have restaurants, we have spas, we have professional consultants, we have doctors, lawyers, health clinics, etc. So we do a little bit of everything.
Awesome.
Excellent. And you helped me immensely. Thank you.
Happy
Yeah.
to. That's it's our joy as well, and especially for women. I think women, it's extra challenging for us, and as a woman that's run her own business, that has raised a child on her own, also has aging parents, when people speak to me about the situation they're in, it resonates with me as well.
Hmm.
You know.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Margaret. It's been
Okay,
super
thank you,
helpful.
ladies.
We
Have
really
enjoyed it.
appreciate having you on here. If people are watching us on YouTube, like, subscribe, get notified to know when we're coming on every week. And until next time, we'll see you on the inner shift.